Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sisters of the Strange. I'm Shae,
And I am Landrey.
and we're glad you're here. Glad everyone's still sticking around.
Yeah.
I'm sure y'all are all tired of listening to me talk, but today's a Landry episode. Woohoo!
Whoa.
Finally.
Yeah.
But I do have some stuff that I need to say before we
Go for it. I'll let you.
I'm just gonna say one more thing about the Menendez brothers, and then we're moving on to a new topic, okay? But I just wanted to talk about the resentencing because I don't know if I had mentioned it in the last, but they're actually working on getting them out right now.
Yeah.
Getting them out of prison. So in October of this year, the DA of Los Angeles, the previous DA of Los Angeles, George Gascon, had filed for them to get out in like 3 different ways and like basically sent a motion to the judge saying, hey, I'm recommending this. This is the the resentencing that I'm recommending. Do with that what you will to this judge. So he started that in like mid-October. So it was like this big deal, right? Well, then there was a re-election for a new DA, and he did not win the election.
Oh.
So George Gascon is no longer the DA of Los Angeles, although it's already in motion. There's a new DA, Nathan Hochman, who was sworn in on December 3rd or something like that, who's like, oh, well, I'm going to go over all of the case review, blah, blah, blah. Even though it's not his decision anymore, it's up to the judge for the resentencing. So Lyle and Eric are represented by a law firm, Garagos. Mark Garagos is the main guy. And a lot of this information I've gotten from a girl named Alex Kazarian. She's on TikTok, surprise. And she talks about the steps and things that they're going through. So they had also filed a habeas petition about a year ago. And this is where that like any new evidence that has been presented comes back in to play. And if it's evidence that would have given the juries a different outlook from the previous. So there's 2 pieces of new evidence. There's a letter that Eric wrote to his cousin Andy years before the murder or months before the murder talking about the abuse. And the second one is a member of a band called Menudo from back in the day. It was a boy band. And Jose had ties with the owner, like the manager of the band somehow. And this guy named Roy Rosello came forward and said that Jose sexually molested him when he was in the band as well. And multiple different times.
Yeah.
So like 2 or 3 times that he like recounted. So those are the 2 pieces of new evidence. So should there be a new trial and the habeas petition is like sent through, that would set a new trial in motion and those 2 new pieces of evidence would come into play. The other one is a resentencing effort for them to be resentenced for something less than their first degree murder, whatever. So it would be like manslaughter. It could be anything even as little as like assault.
Yeah.
So basically it's literally just a resentencing. So what they have now would be, exempt and they would basically get out with time served.
Okay.
I also wanted to mention that 8 days before they went to the second trial, that was when OJ was acquitted and not guilty of literally murdering his wife and her boyfriend. Anyway, I digress. Same judge, but basically they didn't want that to happen again, and so that's why their second trial was so jacked.
Yeah.
So there was a hearing on November 25th. There was a status conference on the resentencing efforts to make sure that they still were good for the date for the actual resentencing to go through. But the judge pushed it back it was supposed to be in December. Now it's been pushed back to January 30th, 2025, because he felt like nobody was going to be ready with all of the information. But on that same day, they took testimony from family members, a couple of family members who were really old and not in great health. And that would be Jose's sister, Terry Baralt. She's 80 years old. And Kitty's sister, Joan, who is 93 years old. And they were able to testify as well for this.
Oh, good.
In case that they're not
alive
or unable to travel for January 30th and 31st date. So anyway, there's things happening and things in motion for the brothers to get out and maybe have a little bit of a life outside of
I hope so.
prison. The
That'd be pretty cool.
resentencing is based off of their lives in prison, their reform in prison, basically. And they've both been exemplary inmates for 35 years.
Yeah.
And they've created safe spaces and just done so many good things and never been violent, things like that. So all of those things will go into account when it comes to the resentencing. Not any of the new evidence, not any of the previous trial, just based on that.
Solely based on that. That's good.
So,
I hope that works out.
yeah. So that's all. I'm done talking about it now. Yeah, and scene.
Yeah. No, I also wanted to kind of touch on it anyways, because I kind of wanted to apologize. So the last Shae did all the research. We just didn't line it out very well on where our parts were going to be and things like that. So we didn't really have an opener and an ending because we really just, for each episode, and I think we put out 4 parts because we recorded for 6 hours straight. So just like as I would edit, I would post it, and I'd edit and I'd post it, but we didn't have like a beginning and end to like a couple of them.
Yeah, huge fail, but
I could have made it happen probably, but it was also so much editing that my brain was fried and I was just like, and I was like, you know what?
I just wanted to get the information out. So that's all that I really cared about was just getting the...
Yeah, but it also taught us, so we're going to do a 4-part, or not a 4-part, but a series eventually again. And now we know, okay, let's put an intro and an end into this.
Let's find some spaces to cut it up.
Yeah, let's intro, outro. But I also have been really bad on editing and getting things out on time. So if you're one of the few people that actually are ready every Tuesday morning.
Andrea, I'm looking at you.
I'm like, I apologize. I'm like, I do work a full-time job and we are doing
As
this.
do I.
Yeah, I'm like, and we're doing this on the side. So it just gets a little hectic every now and again, but it's fine.
We're just here for the ride. We're going with the flow, babe. Okay.
Yeah, we make it work.
So let's listen to Landrey ramble on.
Also, my favorite thing ever is I watched the last like few videos of us with the Menendez brothers, and I am constantly like, you're sitting completely still the whole time, and I'm like this way, and then I'm this way, and then I'm like upside down in my chair.
My mom told me she was so proud of me. She was like, "You were so still the whole time. I was so proud of you."
Not me.
I was like, "Yeah," because I have serious ADD.
I think that's probably because you were also the one talking, so you're more
so
zoned in, you know?
Yeah.
And I was zoned in, but I also like, if I wanted to sit like this, but then I'm not as much in the camera frame, and so then I was sitting here, and then it was hurting my neck, so then I was like upside down. I was trying to stay in frame, but I think we need to move the camera back at some point because
you know,
I like to do this, but I can't do that while I'm talking anyways.
Everything is subject to change.
Literally every single bit of this.
So
yeah.
Anyway.
So my topic today is something that I love as much as you love the Menendez brothers. And so
it's a lot of love.
Yeah. Well, this is a place that like I just decided because I didn't really know what I wanted to cover because the Menendez was so much. I was like, it's got to be something I can edit, research really quickly, like figure out and not take a lot of time on just because we'd spent so much time and I didn't have that much time to research.
Jamie!
No, it's okay. I'm like, part of it's my own lack of not just having research ready beforehand. And we do normally use the generator. And I was like, you know what? I'm not using a generator. I'm just going for it. So I'm going for it.
Breaking the rules. Yeah. Oh, what is it? Breaking the law.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I'm doing Edinburgh because I freaking love it. I literally cannot not think about Edinburgh. Like it's become my personality at this point in time.
I feel you.
Yeah.
So hard.
It's ever since I've been back from there, I'm like, so what do I got to do to live there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel
is
like
it haunted?
Yes, it is very haunted. There's so many different locations and just the history of the city itself. But that's one of the things that was crazy to me when I was over there was like trying to comprehend just the history and how long everything has been there. Because we're from Texas where there's history, but it's not.
Nothing like this.
No.
Can't wait.
I'm like, there's just
I'm
so
excited
much.
because I don't know a single thing about it except that it's pretty.
It is beautiful. And you know, for how long Aaron and I were there, I didn't do any of this haunted, like any of the places that were haunted, we didn't go to them.
Oh,
we just got caught up like being in this city to where we were like, I had planned for us to go to like Edinburgh Castle and I had planned for us to go to Mary King's Close, which is 2 places in this. But we just didn't make it there. I don't know. I'm like, first of all,
gotta go back.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna live there one day. That's just, I know that. I know it. Like, I just feel it.
I love that you're like feeling that about this. You're like, ever since I've been there, I can't stop thinking about it, and now I'm gonna live there. Literally last night, ever since I've done the case that we just did.
Yeah.
I've like, this is all I think about. All I can think about is this case. That's the only thing. I looked up how I can use my nursing license to go into forensics.
Do it.
Hello?
No, that'd be so
I was
cool.
like, light bulb.
Yeah. Do it. That's so cool.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah. I would love that.
I
That'd
know,
be
me
so cool.
too.
You should do it. I'm like, do it. Let's do it. I'll be right here. I'll hold your hand. Let's go.
Yes. And then we can move to Edinburgh together.
And do forensics in Edinburgh. But yeah, so it was just one of those places like Aaron and I, when we got there, it's a 9-hour flight to get there. We left like town. I think we flew out of DFW at like 11 a.m. And like on the plane, I don't know if you've ever been on a plane like that long. I think you have. Where have you gone?
Yeah, Hawaii.
Yes. Because then they like try to put you on the time you're going to. So like they turn the lights all down and they feed you dinner and then they want you to go to sleep on the plane. And like I passed out. I was done. I slept on the plane pretty much the whole way. But I also took an anxiety pill because I knew better.
Oh, smart girl.
I knew that I'd be like 4 hours on the flight and be like, like I'm stuck.
Gotta get out.
Yeah, I knew I'd freak out. So I took my anxiety pill and I went to sleep. Aaron didn't sleep at all. So by the time we landed there, it was the next day because it was like it ended up being an overnight flight to there. We landed there at like 6 a.m. Well, we landed in London at like 6 a.m. And then you fly from London to Edinburgh and it's like an hour flight. Also, London airport, the most awful, like it's just a massive airport. And so just to get through it was like so intense.
A trek.
I had watched YouTube videos on how to handle that airport before I got there because I'd read a bunch of reviews saying like either give yourself like a 4-hour layover or be like on top of where you're going and know what you're doing.
I would be so stressed out.
Yeah, I knew as soon as we landed that we had to like get our shit and run.
Oh my God.
And it's a very long, like the terminals are long. Like
I have
it's
the
crazy.
worst travel anxiety on the history of the planet.
I don't. I travel a lot alone. Like I fly out of DFW alone a lot for work. And so I'm really good at it. So it really doesn't bother me. But I like getting there in time to have time to not freak out.
Right, exactly.
And so
That's
not
how I
having
am.
time. That's why I'm like, I watched YouTube videos.
I have terrible time management skills.
But a lot of people complain about London's like rules and stuff, but the rules are very similar to DFW. So like I'd already planned for DFW. So like the like liquid rules and stuff like that are like basically the exact same.
Oh, that's nice.
And so for me, I was already like, I had us all organized. I was like ready to go.
Yeah.
But either way, got on that plane and it was supposed to be 7 a.m. landing in Edinburgh at 8 a.m. No. We got on the plane, we're on the tarmac in the plane. Someone suddenly decides they need their medicine that's stored under the plane. So then they had to call a whole crew to come get the whatever.
Oh my God, bro.
It took an hour to where it was an hour-long flight. We could have gotten there and then gotten their bag quicker than us just sitting there. So we got to Edinburgh later than intended, got to the rental car place, and then the rental car place was like, oh, well, it's actually this much with blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, it does not say that online at all. Almost $1,000 difference. I was like, what are you talking about? It's crazy. But we got the car anyway because we were over it. We were just trying to get home and like go to sleep for a little bit. So that kind of deterred how our day was going to go because we thought we were going to get to sleep earlier and then get to like explore the city. And I had read a bunch of things that said, hey, land, take a nap, just explore, like lay of the land. And then the next days after that, go do what you want to do.
Plan stuff, yeah.
But the next day we were starting our travel to where we literally were driving. Like we drove to the next stop. And so we had to, it was very confusing. We had to like fly to Edinburgh, did a round trip throughout Scotland, got back to Edinburgh, flew to Ireland, did a round trip in Ireland, flew back to Edinburgh, and then Edinburgh home because it was cheaper to do round trip from DFW to Edinburgh. And then a round trip from Edinburgh to Ireland. It was cheaper to do it like that than it was to do multi-city. And so we ended up in Edinburgh a lot.
Yeah.
And so my plans for Edinburgh just got distorted just because of how many, like, just the changes between getting and being whatever. So I'd planned for us to go to all these places. And then I did it. So, yes, I am going back.
Long story short.
Yes, long story short. It was crazy. I don't know if I'll keep this in here because it's just off topic a little bit. But the very first day that we got there, just how everything's so chaotic, crazy, we went to our Airbnb, went to sleep for a little bit, woke up at 4 p.m., we went to dinner, like walked around, ate, whatever. And then we're like, okay, let's go home and like, let's go back, go to bed because we're going to wake up in the morning and like start. We're tired. It's just been crazy. Went to bed, whatever. I fell asleep with my computer like up because the TV wasn't working. And I woke up and my computer said like 7:14 and I had set my alarm for 7:15 and I was like, cool, great. Like time to get up. Woke Aaron up. I was like, okay, let's get our stuff together. We're like, that's the other thing in Edinburgh. Like if you're in a hotel or Airbnb or whatever, you're like up 7 flights of stairs and you just carry all your bags. And we were there for 3 weeks. So can you imagine how big our bags were for a million flights of stairs? Yeah, that was fun. Got us all packed up. And then my mom texted me a picture of Little Dog and was like, going to Target. And I was like, what? It's 1 a.m. What do you mean? Like at home, it's 1 a.m. So I was like, what? This isn't right. And then I looked at my phone. It was 1 a.m. where we were, and it was 7 p.m. at home. So I had woken us up at 1 a.m. to get ready to go. And then Aaron was like, I knew I felt like I only slept a little bit. And I was like, I was just so excited to get going that I was like, I'm fine.
I feel great.
So
get up.
Thankfully, we didn't take everything downstairs and get in the car and everything like that.
My God.
And
I mean, you would have noticed when she walked outside that it was still dark.
Yeah, but I didn't know if it was like here because sometimes it stays darker, like with daylight savings. Sometimes it stays darker, or sometimes you know. And so I probably would have just kept driving. We probably would have gotten in the car and driven the first hour to our first destination because I had us like stopping on along the routes. That would have been way worse. So shout out to Jeannie for texting me that she was going to Target because.
God bless Jeannie's Target obsession.
Yeah, we would have made it somewhere. Well, it's like I thought that our phones just hadn't caught up to the time.
That's so funny. I think I remember you telling me that story.
Aaron was like, are you kidding me? But we both laid down and went right back to bed. Like it didn't stop that much, but still it was interesting.
That's hilarious.
Okay. So yeah. So kind of like I said, we flew a bunch of different places. Edinburgh just feels like home. Like I think we will definitely end up back there.
Oh my God, cute.
It just, both of us felt that way. Okay. You ready?
Ready.
So Edinburgh is the capital of Scotland and it has a population of about 500,000 people. It's like very densely populated because Scotland, all of Scotland only has, I think like 5 million. The population of Dallas is the same population as all of Scotland.
Oh, cute.
Yeah. So Scotland's really not that populated, but Edinburgh is.
Okay.
And so it has been recognized as Scotland's capital since the 15th century, which is one of those things, like I said, it's just crazy to me to think that that is a thing.
A long time ago.
Like the time. Because you're like, oh, America, 1776. Clearly there was stuff before it was like independence founded everything. But still, it just, I had the hardest time being there and wrapping my head around how old everything is that I was walking around. Because there's, I have some pictures I'll show you, but just like cathedrals and everything you're walking by is you can just tell. It's like you feel like you're like in like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Everything just feels so historic. There's a lot of Harry Potter stuff in Edinburgh because J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter. I did that last time, I think. We've talked about like him before, and I said some shit like that, dude. I'm over it. Get out of here. I can't. But yeah, so the earliest known habitation in the area was dated back to 8500 BC, so before Christ. Like, yeah, old as shit.
Like dinosaurs? No.
I don't know. Dude, I have no time for historical references, okay? I have no idea.
That was a stupid question.
I couldn't tell you if that was right or wrong anyway, so I don't know.
Well, we'll just pretend.
The land before time.
Literally.
I have no idea. But just to me, that's that 8500 alone. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? It's just crazy before Christ. So anyways, there are traces from the Bronze and Iron Age that have been found on Castle Rock, Arthur's Seat, and a few other locations in Edinburgh. Which is interesting to me that it's because those few places are like the highest points in Edinburgh. Like I have some pictures I can show you real quick. Like this is Castle Rock. So Castle Rock is where the actual castle is up on. And so the castle is very high, like elevated.
So pretty.
This is Arthur's Seat. So it's another huge, like that's Castle Rock back there in the background. And then that's like Arthur's Seat. Yeah. I'm going to put these pictures in the YouTube video too, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But Aaron wanted to walk up this and I said, you're funny.
Yeah.
No. Like we were walking past it one day and he's like, we can walk up there because there's people all up it. And I said, no.
Not me.
You can. You can. There was multiple places we went to. There was one that I literally took off the itinerary because I was like, I am not. So it was like 500 and something steps to the top. And I was like,
that's nothing.
Fuck, what is it 500? I don't know. It's a lot of steps. It was enough to where I was like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. I'm lazy as shit, dude. I'm not doing that.
500 steps is like nothing, Landry. I do like 12,000 steps a day.
Oh, not me. You're going to be mad when I say it's only 245 stairs. But I said, I'm not doing that.
Worst.
Look, I said, I'm not in it.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, we ended up going. I died. Straight up, I died. I am ghost. I did not live.
I am ghost.
Because you walk up, it's just a spiral staircase all the way to the very top, and then you get up to the very top, and like it was really cool being up there, but no. Aaron was like, let's go. And I was like, okay, cool. But then also to there, you can take the trail or you can just take a shuttle. And so I was like, well, if we're here, we're fucking doing it all the way. So we walked the trail up.
Yeah.
Which already killed me. Because it's like zigzag, whatever. Yeah. No. There's like 90-year-old women and they're just like booking it. And I was
along.
like, but there's like, it's like so many steps and then a platform, so many steps and a platform, so many steps and then you're at the top. I was like taking breaks. I didn't walk with Aaron up the steps because he would walk so fast that my heart felt like it was coming out of my butthole. And so I was like, okay, I'll just meet you at the top.
See you there.
Yeah. Well, he actually like stopped and did all the exhibits on those floors. And I was like, I'd stop and like, and then I'd start again. So that I didn't have to be on his pace because his pace was not mine. But that is right outside Edinburgh. It's in Stirling, which is like 45 minutes. So
Edinburgh's old as shit.
Old as shit, yeah.
It's a lot of people to be dead and haunting it.
Yeah, but the weird thing also is like I'll get to it, but like all of the ghosts in this, they don't necessarily stick to the one location that they're haunting. They kind of
they're living their best life.
They kind of move throughout the city, but the city is very dense.
Yeah,
because you have to think how much you can get in one space when the topography is so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Here, there's not space for that.
Yeah,
because you can't really build up here.
Yeah,
here you can build up.
Right.
So with the history of Scotland, England, Europe, there was a bunch of like wars between kings, queens, the religion. Because at some point it was, that's why we came to America was to escape all that.
Yeah.
Scotland is still under the king and queen of England. Mm-hmm. Just the history of that alone.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot.
And everything that's tied through there. It's just weird as shit. And but it was so interesting to learn. Like it was way more interesting than American history. Yeah. Like I hated history in school, but everything there, I was like.
Yeah. Soaking it all in.
Yeah. Because we went to, like I said, we drove. And so we went to castles everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so just the history of just the castles themselves.
Yeah.
But then, like I said just now with the ghosts, how they kind of move. I feel like that's how it was at the castles because it would be like Mary, Queen of Scots, which is like Mary Tudor, if you've ever watched the show Tudors.
Nope.
She's in that. And then I think she has her own show on Netflix. Mm-hmm. But she's in every castle that we went to. Like they have like timeline histories.
Oh, that's so
she's
cool.
like.
She's in all of them.
Yeah, she's like visited all of them. But that's how a lot of them, like the kings would all.
Yeah.
It was just interesting. It was just so cool. And just the history there. Like I said, I don't hate American history, but it's not something that I sit down and want to read. Mm-hmm. Scottish history, I will sit down and drool. And because I'm trying to figure it out too, because they're all very interconnected.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. So we're going to start with the history of the Edinburgh Castle.
Okay.
So I showed you Castle Rock. It's the hill. So set upon this mighty rock, Edinburgh Castle's strategic advantage is clear. It was a big site for the military rather than it being like a king-queen castle.
Okay.
It was more military garrison type situation.
Okay.
And so that is very strange. But like Edinburgh Castles, there's a royal mile, which is that picture that I just showed you, this guy right here. It's a mile-long stretch essentially between the castle at the very top and then at the bottom is a palace. And so the monarchs and stuff stay at the palace when they come visit.
Got it.
And so it was more of military. So, as well as guarding great moments in history, the castle has suffered many sieges. During the Wars of Independence, it changed hands many times. In 1314, the Scots retook the castle from the English in a daring night raid led by Thomas Randolph, nephew of Robert the Bruce. So Robert the Bruce over there is a very big deal as well. I think he was on the Scots side because the Scots have always been fighting for their freedom from England. Like that's what like Jacobites, and I don't know if you ever watch Outlander, but that's basically it is like Jacobites are Scotland, like Scottish soldiers, but like not necessarily soldiers. They're kind of like a militia. Almost. And they've been fighting for their freedom. And so the castle was mainly between Scottish and English fights.
Okay.
And like there was some like, like French invasions probably and like little things like that. But for the most part, it was literally just Scotland fighting the English rule. And so the castle would kind of go back and forth. And so Robert the Bruce, I want to say he was on the Scots side, but I just couldn't tell you. But he is a huge deal over there. He's got a massive statue outside of Stirling Castle. But Edinburgh Castle was home to kings and queens for many centuries. Queen Margaret, who was later made a saint, died here in 1093. The chapel built
That's not even a real number. That's not a real year.
No.
That doesn't exist.
Illegal. Yeah, no.
1090. Okay.
Crazy. I know, I'm like, you should have seen me just walking around and they say numbers and I said.
Your brain just like doesn't compute that.
And like
Mine doesn't. I don't know.
In castles, I'm just trying to imagine just how they worked.
Yeah.
Like you'd see all the stuff on the walls, like the bells for servants and stuff like that. And just sitting there trying to even imagine any of that. I was like, what are you talking about right now? It just like I couldn't like wrap my head around it. It was cool as shit, but my brain just didn't want to do it. So after she died in 1093, there was a chapel built by her son in her honor, and it's one of Edinburgh's oldest buildings. So there's a great hall, which like all castles have a great hall. It's probably where like banquets, and it always has like the dining table in the middle, and then it would have like you could dance on the outsides. It had I don't know about this great hall just because I didn't visit it, but a lot of the great halls had stages, but they were almost built at the ceiling for the bands and stuff to be up there and to like not take up space.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy. But
smart.
Yeah, this great hall, really honestly, and it helped with like the acoustics.
Yeah.
But the great hall at Edinburgh Castle was completed in 1511 for King James IV, and he died in 1513 in a battle, so he didn't even get to like really enjoy it.
Womp womp.
So I've already mentioned Mary, Queen of Scots, just kind of a little bit about her.
I know, I've heard of her.
So above the door to the royal palace are the gilded initials MAH for Mary, Queen of Scots, and her second husband, Henry Stuart. Mary gave birth to James IV in the royal palace in 1566. He became the King of Scotland at 13 months old, and he was used to unite the crowns between Scotland and England in 1603. So following the union of the crowns, the birth of him, in 1603, Edinburgh Castle was rarely visited by like the reigning monarch, but this is kind of where it turned more into a significant like a military base. As a formidable stronghold, the castle was the most secure lockup in Scotland. So between 1757 and 1814, the vaults became home to many hundreds of prisoners of war. So Edinburgh Castle is one of the oldest fortified places in Europe with a long, rich history as a royal residence, military garrison, prison, and fortress. It is alive with many exciting tales. When you climb Castle Hill, you will walk in the footsteps of soldiers, kings, and queens, and even the odd pirate or two. Known as the most haunted place in Scotland, Edinburgh Castle has had reports of ghosts and paranormal activity going back hundreds of years. There have been thousands of claims by visitors and staff members alike, including apparitions, being touched and pulled, the feeling of being watched, shadowy figures, mists, green lights, sudden temperature drops, and people suddenly becoming overrun by emotions. The most common experience is the sighting of apparitions. So the sighting of an older man in a leather apron has been seen, as well as a headless drummer boy and the Grey Lady, other known as Janet Douglas, Lady of Glams. And so that's what I was kind of saying. She goes between, because she's like one of the main ghosts that haunts Glams Castle, which I went to there. I did go to there. And so whenever I was reading about this, I was like, wait, what? I know who she is. Like I already know the story of her. And so, yeah. So she's said to be haunting Edinburgh Castle as well. Other reports include a poltergeist in the castle dungeon and a regular sighting of ghost dogs in the castle's dog cemetery, the most notable being Greyfriars Bobby, which I talk about him. He's also one of the ghosts that travels.
I want to see a ghost dog immediately.
But not a black, scary ghost dog.
Not a black omen dog, a ghost dog.
Yeah, so Greyfriars Bobby looks like a little kind of a Yorkie. I have a picture of him further down because I had him.
Is it a Scotty?
No, not really.
Oh, he's one of those, that's like an Irish setter. He's cute.
But he's in this, and he's in a haunting later on in the as well. He haunts a few different places. Okay, so the legend of the little drummer boy goes back to 1650 when his headless ghost was spotted playing an old Scottish tune along the battlements. His spirit appeared whenever Oliver Cromwell's men were laying siege to the castle, therefore giving credence to the belief that the boy appears when the castle is under attack. Nobody knows who this apparition could be, but anyone living today hasn't witnessed this phenomenon just due to the fact that he only is supposed to be seen whenever when the castle's under attack.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
That no one sees him right now, because then that means the castle would be under attack in the whole city, But yeah.
What happened to his head?
No one knows who he could be. And no one's been able to ask who he is, and no one wants to be able to ask who he is because then the castle would be under attack.
Shit.
So now we're going on to Janet Douglas. The story of her is pretty tragic. The Douglas family was not favored by King James V. Janet's brother, Archibald Douglas, is the 6th Earl of Angus and was also the king's stepfather. It's confusing.
Got it.
I'm aware it's confusing. I tried to lay it out better, but
that's okay.
I'll say it's hard. So Angus, her brother, had imprisoned the young James. James' hatred for Angus extended to his whole family, including her. And after James had broken free from the Douglas family in December of 1528, Janet was summoned for treason. She was accused with others for bringing supporters of the Earl of Angus to Edinburgh in June because she supported her brother who didn't support the king, and it's a whole disaster there.
Get your panties out of a bunch.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. So like she was...
Your bloomers.
It's really confusing, but that's where it's like her brother was for the Jacobite uprising.
Mm-hmm.
So then she was conspiring with her own brother just by being with her brother. And so the king didn't like her for that.
Yeah.
Which is just whatever.
Drama.
Yeah. So Janet was once charged with poisoning her husband, John Lyons, 6th Lord of Glamis, who had died on September 17th in 1582. The case was later dropped, and Janet was free to marry her second husband, Archibald Campbell of Skipness, by the summer of 1532. However, on July 17th, 1537, Janet was convicted of planning to poison the king and communicating with her brothers. So she was imprisoned with her husband, he later escaped, but he escaped and then was killed. But she was imprisoned with her husband in a dungeon in Edinburgh Castle, and the king could never really gain evidence of all of this. He just didn't like her.
Yeah, he's like, I just don't like you, so.
Yeah, so he was trying to gain evidence he subjected like her servants and her family members to torture because he was going to like try and get it out of them one way. And I actually do think I could be confusing this with another story because I do not have it written down here, but I almost think one of her like servants did end up saying that she did it, but it was because she was being tortured.
Just so he would stop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Janet was convicted and burned at the stake on July 17th, 1537 at the castle. And
she was burned at the stake?
Yes, and her son had to watch. There is some other stories around all of this where witchcraft was involved, so maybe that's why she got put at the stake,
okay,
but I didn't put that in here.
Okay.
But yeah. So I had heard her story whenever I was at Glamis Castle. So she's the Grey Lady of Glamis Castle, but she's also the Grey Lady of Edinburgh Castle. But yeah, her story is pretty shit, if you ask me. Poor girl.
Poor gal.
Yeah. So shortly after her death and her
Haters,
stake.
man.
Yeah, really, honestly. I'm like, she might have been conspiring, but I'm also like, whatever. Whatever, dude. But shortly after, people witnessed the Grey Lady walking throughout the castle weeping. Rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
So several centuries ago, a secret network of tunnels was discovered underneath the Royal Mile that went from the castle towards Holyrood Place, which it goes back and forth between place or palace. It just depends on whoever. But so to find out where they led, people sent a young piper boy to search the tunnels for them. He set about playing his bagpipes. And the people above followed the sound. The sound was clear from a time until the bagpipe stopped abruptly near Tronkirk on the Royal Mile, which I do believe is just like kind of like a road.
Mm-hmm.
We can look it up further, but disturbed by the boy's disappearance, the city council ordered the tunnels to be sealed and never reopened. Since his disappearance, the little boy playing his bagpipes can still be heard underneath the Royal Mile.
Ooh.
Visitors still report this phenomenon today. I don't know how people would hear that because the Royal Mile is so loud.
Because
Like,
there's so many people.
just walking up and down it is such a noisy. But there's also people playing bagpipes on like every other fucking corner. So
well, maybe it's like one of those things like late night,
yeah, because we did
eerie.
not walk around there at night at all.
Ooh.
We were too
Maybe
wore
just-
out. We were done.
Yeah.
But listening to the bagpipes was beautiful. I don't think I've ever really heard them other than
Mhm.
not in a serious way. I guess I'd never really heard them.
Yeah.
I just heard
Beautiful.
people like fucking around with them, I guess. I don't know. I
Who
never
do you know
like,
that's fucking around with the bagpipe?
just like on random shit, like on The Simpsons and random shit like that, you know?
okay, that's fair.
Or
I'm just,
I
like,
think even, like,
picturing somebody
I
just,
genuinely even
like-
think there's bagpipes on Austin Powers and like he's just an ass. It's the big fat bastard.
Oh yeah.
I think he
yeah.
plays bagpipes on Austin Powers. I've never heard him being played like for real, and it was beautiful. Like Aaron and I were just like stopping.
Yeah, it is really pretty.
Yeah, it was really cool. So
Anyway.
So here, I will show you what the Royal Mile is. I'm just going to show you a picture. And like I said earlier, it's just like the mile between
Mm-hmm.
the two places. So it's the most famous tourist attraction in Edinburgh. And then, like I said, this is where J.K. Rowling got the inspiration for Diagon Alley, which is, I do believe, Victoria Street. She also resided here while writing Harry Potter. So there was a location there, and I think it was called the White Elephant or the Red Elephant. And that is where she wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it's right off Diagon Alley or like the Diagon Alley,
Mhm.
whatever. But it was not open when I was there, but there were still people taking pictures in front of it. So
Mhm.
I'm not a huge Harry Potter person. I just have only watched a few of them. So I didn't dive into it heavily, you know?
Oh.
But there's a lot of like, because I even reference it a little bit later.
Mm.
So speaking of underground spaces on the Royal Mile, let's move over to Mary King's Close. So Mary King's Close is located under the Edinburgh City Chambers building on the Royal Mile. And for those of you who haven't been, who don't know, a close over there is like an alleyway.
Okay.
Some of the closes actually lead to like private residences. Some of them lead to pubs. Some lead to a courtyard. Like, it's just an alleyway.
Yeah.
So whenever I say close, that's what it is. So Mary King's Close and its surrounding streets were not always underground. In the 1600s, they were open to the skies and filled with residents and market traders. At some point in history, the council wanted to build the exchange underground so that the merchants and traders wouldn't be out on the streets still.
Yeah.
And so I think the idea of that sounds crazy that they just built
over it.
But then when you look at the topography there, it just makes sense. Like we ended up we were taking a staircase to get to our next location and ended up passing like the entrance to the close, or I don't know if it's the main entrance, but it said Mary King's Close. And I was like, oh shit, that's where I wanted to go. And so it just makes sense, the ability to just build over it. Sounds crazy in theory from like where we are, because building here over our city would be insane.
Yeah.
You would have to build up and over it. But there, since the topography, it's easy.
Yeah.
It would crazy to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't compute.
No, it's crazy. You have to like walk around there to realize like, oh yeah, it's super easy to just like up and over. Like it's just nothing. It's really fucking cool. That's all I got.
It's cool.
That's all I've got. So all of the closes had their own names. Some were named after their profession that was located inside of the close, such as Fish Market Close or the Advocates Close. But at first, Mary King's Close was named King's Close or Alexander King's Close, and they actually weren't related at all. Alexander was a prominent lawyer until his death in 1619, and then Mary King was a widowed fabric merchant who sewed for a living. After her husband died in 1629, she and her 4 children moved into the close. Here, she rented a so-called like turnpike house with a cellar. I did not look up what that is, so feel free to look it up. But she also rented a shop on High Street, which is off of the Royal Mile. So as a widow, she had to work very hard, but according to discovered papers, she led a fairly comfortable life. When she died in 1644, her will was written up in a book, which was like found way later, and she had the close named after her. But like I said, it sounds really weird to be like, oh, wait, she lives in the close. But like I said, a lot of the closes like led to...
Yeah.
It's just, I wish I had seen it to where I could make it make more sense. Because I can make it make sense, the city part of it, because I walked around all of them so much. But I can't make it make sense because I didn't go in there to like truly understand. Because even right now, I'm like, how did she live in a close? But I walked in some of the closes, and like I said, it led to like apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm like, maybe it's like that. So Mary King's Close is actually a cluster of several closes. So a lot of the alleyways and stuff connected. They say it's like a labyrinth and it has 8 layers. So some of the people who lived in the close were rich people, like very successful merchants, lawyers, and doctors. They lived in the Grand High houses, and these homes were often several stories and had a cellar. And so the high houses were higher level up, quite literally like stories up.
Yeah.
And then there were people who also lived in low houses, and they were everyone from just a tradesman to the very poorest of people. Some of the low houses were comfortable, but were normally dark and lacked sanitation. So it is difficult to imagine living in such extreme conditions as many did back then. The corridors that are now lit with modern day lamps used to be lit by oil, like fish oil.
Gross.
So the smell of that alone had to have been just absolutely disgusting. And there was no indoor plumbing. So people threw their buckets filled with urine and feces down the street.
Ew.
Yeah, they were allowed to do it 2 times a day before 7 a.m. and after 10 p.m. They had to call out French words, excuse me for this, Gardez Elu. And it says it's mind the water. But in Scottish, it sounded more like Gardelu. And so, yeah, they just threw their shit and pee out the windows. Like all along the Royal Mile. Like everywhere.
Galoo.
Galoo. Yeah. So if you're in the lower level houses,
You're getting...
fish oil, stench, and...
I might puke.
Yeah, pee poo. Pee pee poo poo. This is kind of like, this is one of the pictures.
I'm a child.
This is one of the pictures in the close. So you can see where, like, you can imagine this being an alleyway, I guess.
Yeah.
And then just they put a roof on it. Not only were the rooms cramped and the streets smelly, but people also had to watch out for murderers, rapists, and thieves who also lived in the close. There were other dangers too. Workshops like the Tanners used horse urine for his leather making process, which is definitely
Why is everything stinky?
definitely like a biohazard. And not only were like rapists and just bad people living in those closes, but think of how dark they were.
Yeah.
It's enclosed.
Yeah.
And
Ain't nobody gonna see you or hear you what's going on down there if you're the only one.
Yeah. And then Mary King's Close was also located next to Old Nora Loch, a heavily polluted swamp that was used for dumping rubbish. A poisonous biogas rose from the swamp, penetrating through the walls of the close. Yeah, this gas.
Good God.
Yeah, right? It reminds me of all I can think about is Futurama. Whenever they go to where Leela's from, and this like she's
yes,
like, yeah,
yes.
that's where
and
my
everybody's
yeah.
like
And
mutated.
and if you jump in the water, it's what mutates you. That's what this makes me think of because it's all underground, just like this is. It's
Yes.
So sorry, Edinburgh, you are now Futurama.
Stinky swamp.
Yeah.
City.
Stinky Swamp City.
Ugh.
Yeah. But this gas also caused hallucinations and produced a creepy greenish light, which was mistaken for ghost apparitions quite often. So some of the first ghost sightings and stories from this place are dating back from the 17th century. In 1644, Mary King, the merchant lady, died, and 4 months later, the plague broke out in Edinburgh. And so due to overcrowding within the city...
Black Plague?
There's two.
Oh.
It's the pneumonic plague, and which is known as Black Death, and then the bubonic plague.
Pneumonic and bubonic.
Yeah. So pneumonic, I'm going to assume, is something like pneummonia.
Yeah. Pneumonic plague.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was two. I always thought it was just the bubonic plague.
I didn't either. I learned that today because I thought bubonic and Black Death were the same thing. So
Learn something new every day.
yeah, interesting, right?
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
crazy. Okay, so she died and then the plague broke out.
Yes, as soon as she died, plague broke out, spread like freaking dang wildfire because of
Uh-huh.
how populated this place is, right?
Yeah.
And everything is so close together there.
Yeah.
And so when the plague hit, 300 infected residents were sealed within the close. This sounds barbaric. It does. But it was the only way to prevent more spreading. So they basically were like, let's cut it off right here. Yeah. So
That's crazy. Could you imagine if they did that like during COVID?
they kind of did. They put people in concentration camps and shit. Like in Australia, they had like pop-up concentration camps. Basically a concentration
God.
camp.
It's crazy.
I'm like, it's not a concentration camp, but that's what it made me think of. I was like, oh, cool. We're,
Wow. I didn't know they did that.
yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
Well,
Sounds a little scary, but I mean, I guess if it cuts it off.
did it work?
It's literally, dude, that's literally what they would do. And they were literally like, they quarantined the shit out of you. Like if you went to the hospital, they were like, don't.
Oh, Ebola?
Yes, don't. And they Ziploc bag you
Mhm.
into a room. Yeah. So yeah, that's,
But that would be like one person at a time.
yeah. Instead, they're like, well, all of you,
All
bye.
300 of you, goodbye forever.
Yeah.
Sleep tight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So the sealed victims weren't really left to die on their own. They were given food and ale each day. And there was a plague doctor named George Ray who was left with them to care for them. So he wore a long leather coat and the bird-like
bird
beak.
beak. Oh,
Mhm.
I love that thing.
Because it had, I never understood why they wore
had
that, but it
herbs in
had
it.
like herbs and stuff in the beak,
Mhm.
which I think I learned from Ghost Adventures.
Also learned that from Ghost Adventures. Thank you,
Which
Zach Bagans.
We round back to him.
Oh, yeah, because they did an episode.
Yeah. So we round back because I talk about him in a minute. But yeah, so he wore that beak and a leather coat. He saved people by cutting away boils and burning the flesh.
What a guy.
Yeah, it was effective.
Wow.
Yeah, so nobody expected him to survive, clearly. And when he did, the council was shocked and they had like offered to pay him this insane salary, not thinking he would live. They never paid him.
I'm
Yeah.
killing all of them.
Never paid him because they didn't expect he would live.
What a bunch of fuckers.
Yeah, assholes, dude.
That's so shitty.
Yeah, isn't that shit?
They're like, ha, yeah, we'll pay you $1 million.
Yeah, thanks
See
for
you
doing this.
later."
Fuck you. Honestly, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What was his name?
George Ray,
George Ray. You the real MVP, bro.
R.I.P. I didn't cross myself with the correct hand, and I know that. Don't come at me. I'm like, I'm busy.
Oh my God.
Next is Thomas Coulthart, a respected lawyer, and his wife moved into the close in 1685. Their maid fled immediately. She said, "This place is haunted. I'm out."
Ooh.
Yeah.
Smart girl.
Done. Yeah, so later Coulthart and his wife saw a man's disembodied head floating through the house. Miss Coulthart fainted from seeing this apparition, and it disappeared shortly after that. It returned back after supper with a child's spirit and a severed arm, which beckoned to them. Yeah, I don't know where this is coming from.
Jesus.
I don't know if it's like the plague victims. I have no idea. I have no clue. So then a ghostly dog appeared running through the living room, followed by a ghost cat, and the whole room filled with this weird, like with a bunch of little creatures who they claimed danced around prettily. And then a deep and dreadful groan filled the room and all the ghosts and ghouls disappeared. But I'm like,
Cute.
what drugs were they on?
Dude, yeah, that's crazy. That's a lot.
They've
going
got the
on there.
biogas
Yeah.
to see animals dancing around prettily.
The biogas.
It reminds me of like Snow White and all the animals are like, tee, 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 tee.
They have like
Yeah.
flowers in their hair.
Yeah. So then Another ghost at the close is believed to be a ghost of its last resident, Andrew Chesney. He was forced to leave the close in 1902 out of like a compulsory purchase, which is where they pay him to leave. Andrew was especially proud of his thunderbox, also known as his toilet. He would leave.
wait. Thunderbox.
Welcome to the Thunderdome, baby. Where do you think I was going with that?
I don't know. I didn't think it was going to be a toilet.
Yeah.
Oh my God. From now on,
I'm going to the Thunderbox. Don't talk to me.
Oh my God, I'm crying.
You're welcome.
Oh.
He would often leave the door open and wave at passers while he was doing his business. His spirit, though, is seen as a worried-looking man wandering through the alleys. He's like, what'd you do with my Thunderbox?
What's in the box? Oh my God. He would just wave at them while he was shitting?
Yeah. If y'all were wanting like scary ghost stories, I am sorry I don't have those right now.
No, I'm here for the comedy.
The Thunderbox?
We just did some real deep shit, and this is just really like bringing it back.
Gotta round it out.
I love this.
We'll wrap around.
We'll wrap around.
Yeah, so this one's a little bit spooky, I guess. Another report is that there are scratching sounds heard from inside the chimney. I'm not exactly sure what chimney, if there's only one chimney. Like I said, I didn't get to go there. So it just says the chimney. But there was apparently a child sweeper who had died. And so people who were brave enough to put their hands inside the chimney get scratched. And then there's footsteps and voices that are heard throughout the entire close. Sometimes an occasional stone is thrown. And then there's Annie. So in 1992, a Japanese medium called Ayako Gibo, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, but Ayako Gibo visited Mary King's Close. When the tour guide entered a particular room, she pulled back claiming she couldn't enter because it was too strong.
Oh.
Later, she claimed having a heavy feeling of dread and someone tugging at her trousers. She later returned alone to figure out what was causing this, and Ayako found the spirit of a little girl crying in the corner of the room. She told Ayako, I know, little girl ghosts, I'm just not interested. But she told Ayako she couldn't find her family, and it made her very sad. Ayako assumed that this girl was about 9 years old and had probably been infected with the plague and was abandoned by her family during the contamination effort. She told Ayako she was also sad because she lost her beloved doll. Ayako brought the spirit, who is now named Annie, a doll.
The Annie doll?
I guess so. It's missing right now.
Is that the creepy one that looks like Raggedy Ann?
I don't know if that's where that came from.
No, that's Annabelle. Annie.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Ooh. Okay, anyway, sorry.
I don't know. But she left the doll in her room, and then many other people followed this example. And now Annie's room is stuffed with dolls and puppets and things of the like. The atmosphere in the room changed immediately, and Annie promised not to bother anyone anymore as long as she got to keep her doll. Once a year, all the other puppets, dolls, and toys are donated to the Sick Kids Foundation, all except for the original doll. But recently, the doll is missing, and there's a social media hashtag that says "Bring back the doll."
What is the
what is
the original doll?
I don't know. It says the original doll's nicknamed was Tartan Barbie. Tartan is a type of is like the one thing I learned over there is like your family name there. Like ours is Duff, or mine is, well, there's Edwards over there as well. But Duff over there, you have your own tartan and like things like that. So like we have our own family pattern, and like you have your own, like you wear a certain pattern on like your wedding day. Yeah. You wear a certain like article,
a crest.
like like there's family crest and stuff as well. But the tartan is like a pattern of like plaid. So it was probably a doll that was wearing, like a Scottish doll wearing like a kilt or like a sash.
I see. That Barbie doll belongs to Ghost of Little Girl. That's literally a Barbie doll. Ain't no way.
Well, the girl brought the doll in like in 1992. So yeah.
Oh.
Barbie dolls were,
okay, yeah.
She brought it to her as like a gift. Like the medium brought it to her.
Oh, okay. So now like, that doll's missing.
Yes.
Got it.
But the medium brought her the doll to like satiate her and like make her happy.
Yeah.
And so Barbie doll makes sense.
Okay.
In that time frame.
And that doll's missing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Pause.
So back to Ghost Adventures. Because now I'm going to be talking about the Edinburgh Vaults.
Vaults?
So, vaults.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, I can't talk today. So it's just part of it's a Landrey problem. So I am almost certain the first episode of Ghost Adventures we ever watched, or like that night when we're at Mark's house, I think what made us laugh was Zach was in like a stone room that had like arches behind him, and something happened that he was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And we started laughing so hard we like fell off the bed.
Uh-huh.
Almost certain it was the Edinburgh Vaults.
Really? Oh my God, I'm going to have to go back and watch.
Look, no, season 1, episode 7 at 30 minutes and 20 seconds. So I'll skip 2.
I remember that very, very,
Pretty well.
distinctly. I don't remember falling off the bed, but I do remember laughing my ass off at that because then it was like,
I think
we were talking about the scratching because we were also scared.
Yeah. So it was like the first time we'd ever watched it.
Yeah. Good times, man. Good
Yeah.
times.
So in case you're curious, season 1, episode 7 at 30 minutes and about 20 seconds is when Zach did this little freak out thing that I think is what like got us started in the show. So interesting enough. Yeah.
Love that.
We're somehow already semi-versed in this.
Back. Yeah. Everything
Full
comes
circle
back around,
every time.
Full circle.
Yes. So the Edinburgh Vaults are also known as the Southbridge Vaults, and they're located on Blair Street, Edinburgh, which is, well, at least that's where the entrance is today. It could have been a different entrance at a different point in time, but that's where they are now. So the construction of the South Bridge started in 1785 when the 19 arches to support it were built. The vaults, chambers, and tunnels underneath it were walled in and sectioned off in descending levels. By 1788, when the South Bridge was officially opened, approximately 120 vaults or rooms were ready. The grand opening of South Bridge and the Edinburgh Vaults was quite special. A rich elderly woman from Adams Square had followed the entire construction of the bridge and demanded to be the first to cross it. Her wish was granted because of her influential friends and high places, but just before the festive opening, the woman died. Anyways, well, she was still the first one to cross it in her coffin. Yeah, many superstitious locals looked upon this as like a bad omen for these vaults, essentially.
Yeah, the first person across it was a dead woman.
So above ground, the businesses on Southbridge were thriving. Most vaults were used as storage facilities, but as Edinburgh's population continued growing, the vaults unofficially provided living quarters for the poorest of the poor. So although there is little evidence that is written of squatting, as it was pretty illegal, evidence was found in the material which was left behind. And it's just really unimaginable. They live like this. It's the same thing as like the clothes, just damp and dark and just stunk.
Oh.
Yeah. So the above ground conditions, like I've mentioned, just weren't much better because it was so overpopulated and the mortality rates were super high, and just the lack of sanitation, like we've mentioned, just pee and poop out windows and everything like that. So then there was also like a lot of murders that took place, and the murderers would hide their victims in the vaults.
I mean, hey.
Yeah, well, even victims that died like naturally, they were in the vaults as well. Grave robbers would take the bodies and put them in the vaults. Which
like
I circle back to it again. So literally, the Edinburgh Vaults were not only used as living quarters for the poor, but they were used as a great place for criminal activity such as body snatching. Freshly dug up corpses were hidden here until a buyer was found.
A buyer?
A buyer, yeah. The demand for corpses in those days was huge. Criminals were paid £10 for each corpse. So it was very profitable.
For why?
I don't know. I thought medical cadavers is what I'd read.
People are
somewhere
such
else.
freaks.
Yeah. Well, the conditions were great because it was cool and had a constant temperature. So, yeah. So then this is I tie this back in later as well because one of our locations is a cemetery, but rich people would place safes of iron on their graves, which I will show you a picture of eventually because I talk about a cemetery next. But they would do that to keep squatters and bad people,
body snatchers out
of their grave. Yeah. So by the 1860s, the conditions became so bad that most of the vaulted rooms were cleared. The chambers were filled with rubble to prevent flooding and the squatters to return. During World War II, some of the vaults were used as air raid shelters, but soon the vaults were completely forgotten about. Until the 1980s, when a former rugby player, Norrie Rowan, became a property owner and builder in the Old Town. He rediscovered the vaults by accident. The rubble was cleared in most areas, and some areas were transformed into nightclubs, hospitality venues, and even a theater. But the part under Blair Street remained cleared and was eventually open to the public. So then now there's ghost tours that go throughout there. And that's
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I'm about to go through a couple of the rooms, but that's how Ghost Adventures was able to go back into.
The vaults.
Yeah. So
it's a good
like tourist thing now.
Yeah, but it was like even back then, I mean, it was a good idea. It was a good thought, I think.
Yeah.
It could have been very useful had it not been used for
nastiness.
nastiness.
Yeah. Could have been decent.
Anyway.
Yep. So there is the double height room. The room has a high ceiling, probably due to a collapsing upper roof or upper floor. It looks like it's 2 rooms on top of each other. Tour guides mentioned the fact that during one of the tours in 2005, a woman claimed to have seen a man resembling President Abraham Lincoln in front of the top floor's door. This apparition is also known as the aristocrat. He's a tall man with a top hat and a beard. He's often seen in the double height room, but is also known to move into the tavern room. Dogs dislike this room. They bark, whimper, or simply refuse to enter. There's also a bird-like apparition that likes to swoop down and claw at people below.
And
Nope. Yeah, the ghost of a naked man has been seen floating in the upstairs section of the room close to the doorway. And then the temperature always in that room always has like dramatic changes and the atmosphere can be menacing. So then now we'll go into the tavern room. I said before, the tavern room is also haunted by the aristocrat. Psychics who tried to lay contact with the spirit said his name is either Finian or Garen, maybe?
Garen.
Maybe. Yeah, my cousin's name is Garen, but it's definitely not spelled like that. Okay. Garen Mackenzie. He's often seen leaning against the wall from where he watches people. He's grinning at them, but more of a curious way, not like a hostile way. He might have been a member of the Hellfire Club, which is not the Hellfire Club in Ireland, but is a notorious gentleman's club inside the Edinburgh Vaults. This club was believed to have had ties to the Dark Lord himself. People have seen a black mass moving along the ceiling as well as the apparition of a dark figure that paces around the room. And then its sighs and screams are known to come from this room, and some people claim to have felt as if they were drunk in here.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, they said that some appear to be drunk, they're unable to walk straight, and suffer from extreme giggling, which is kind of spooky. That's like hysterics.
Yeah.
So then there's the Nedry Street corridor. Reports of paranormal activity have occurred since the tours have started. A malevolent male spirit is said to live here. He's very territorial and occasionally shouts, "Get out!" He's a big man wearing a dirty blue overcoat, and it looks as if he's holding something in his hand, most likely a knife. And he obviously thinks that these are his vaults.
A knife.
Yeah. What do you have? A knife. No. It was one of my favorite videos. So then there is the Room of the Cobbler. This is a very active room and is haunted by his very happy spirit. He's believed to have been a shoemaker from the late 1700s or the early 1800s, and he still carries out his profession. He was first seen in 1997 in his usual southwest corner of the room. He's short, stocky, and bald, probably in his early 50s. He wears a leather apron on top of a white shirt. He's sitting on a bench while working on a shoe, and he really seems to enjoy the company. He's always smiling and laughing. The cobbler is very interested in people's footwear and is known to tug at shoelaces.
Aww.
Yeah, he's such a strong and friendly ghost that psychics have advised the staff to go to the cobbler's room in case of any like paranormal trouble. Like he'll protect you from the malevolent spirits.
Oh, what a cute little guy.
Yeah, there was also a thing like after it said that he tugs at shoelaces, it said, but he hasn't figured out Velcro yet.
Oh, how cute is that? I love it. I want to go meet him.
I know, but so then there's also the veiled woman. So however, something inside the room is not friendly to everyone. Small stones have been thrown at visitors. They bounce off against the walls. Some visitors have even seen the stones being thrown across the room. Especially female visitors can feel grief, anger, and can even experience abdominal pains in the northwest corner of the cobbler's room. Yep. Yeah, so I don't want to go in the room. You can.
Right.
These dark feelings are linked to a young woman completely dressed in black. She wears a veil as if she's grieving. Psychics have described the woman as very disturbed. They think this woman has lost her child in a traumatic way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say when you said that woman would get abdominal pain. I was like, oh, she probably lost her baby.
Oh.
Because those
I didn't even think like that.
Freaking ghosts, man, who lose their babies, they be
griefing.
Ugh.
Yeah, La Llorona. Yeah, Llorona.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's also a wine vault. A little boy named Jack or James is often spotted in the wine vault, although he's able to wander through the entire area. Jack or James is believed to be about 6 or 8 years old and has blonde curly hair. He wears a blue suit with knickerbocker trousers and a white shirt. Jack likes to watch the visitors from the lower shelf, and he sometimes even moves around when there are groups. He really likes other children, and he loves holding hands with women. He likes to sing and is sometimes seen playing with a red ball. It's likely that Jack or James is afraid of a spirit known by the name Mr. Boots. He is known to sometimes tug sharply on someone's sleeves or coat because he doesn't want that person to enter the Blair Street corridor. So there's the room of the caretaker. In this room, a man is often seen sitting by the fireplace. He seems really relaxed with his legs outstretched and a drink in his hand. A small, wiry-haired, terrier-like dog sits at his feet. The dog tends to brush against people's legs and even sniffs at people. There's also a white room. The vault's most active room is the white room. This is the room where a very unpleasant spirit lurks. He is Mr. Boots, but he's also known as the Watcher. He's a big man who wears knee-length leather boots. His footsteps are heard echoing throughout the vaults. He tends to sneak up on people. Some people even claim they can smell his bad breath.
Ew!
Which is disgusting. Mr. Boots walks around the entire underground city. People think he's also the same spirit that stalks the Needry Street corridor, but he is particularly protective of the White Room and doesn't want anyone in there. He's a strong spirit, making batteries drain, cameras malfunction, and lights go out. He's left scratch marks on people, and he's able to inflict pain. Mm-hmm. It is believed that Mr. Boots was a body snatcher or a murderer, and that he hid his victims in the White Room, and this might explain like the stench of death or like what they think is his breath. He's known to avoid, the only room he's known to avoid is the cobbler's room. So that's where people find comfort.
I wonder why he doesn't go in there.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Sounds just
That's
like a scary bad
spooky.
guy. So
Ugh.
yeah. So now we are going to move above ground for the first time in a
Thank
while
God.
to the Greyfriars Kirkyard. So Greyfriars Kirkyard was opened in 1562 when the old cemetery of St. Giles became overcrowded. So St. Giles is like the big, massive cathedral that you'll see a lot of pictures, like when you look up Edinburgh, which I didn't get to go there either.
Oh my God.
I know, I'd planned to and I just didn't. I just got so caught up. But I went to the Frankenstein bar like every day that I was there.
What's the Frankenstein bar?
It's a bar of Frankenstein. Like they play Frankenstein movies the whole time.
Aw, cute.
They have a certain time where Frankenstein falls out of the ceiling. And they play like his music or whatever. And it's like, he's alive. And he sits up and then he goes back down and then he goes back up.
Oh,
it was just a fun bar. We just really enjoyed it.
Okay.
I'll have to show you some videos of that after this.
Yeah.
Because there was also like, they play live music and there was a band that was in there and they sing really well.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the songs that they play in every single pub, every fucking where in Scotland, like you know how we have like, if you go to a bar in America, you're going to hear like Don't Stop Believing by Journey, like without fail. They play Zombie.
By the Cranberries?
Mm-hmm. Like everywhere.
I love that song.
I can't hear that song and I can't listen to like any of Hozier? Is that
Hosier?
I don't know. Whatever.
Hosier.
I know his real name's like Andrew. I know that. I can't listen to like any of his songs without thinking of Scotland because that's what we listened to like on our drives. We were like very heavy into like his music.
That's such a good vibe.
It was amazing. Beautiful.
Ugh.
Beautiful. But yeah, so they play Zombies everywhere. So now anytime I hear it, I'm like, I close my eyes, act like I'm in a pub.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, we need to go.
I love that little fact.
We're going to go. You're going to go with me.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Tell me when.
Tomorrow, if you'd like. So Greyfriars Kirkyard was opened in 1562 when the old cemetery of St. Giles became overcrowded. Back in the day, cemeteries and graveyards were supposed to be located out of the city because they were they had an odor problem.
Imagine that.
Yeah. But as the city grew, houses and buildings were growing all around the graveyard, so it kind of came to lie within the city walls. It was named after I'm going to probably say this wrong, Franciscan friary, where monks wore gray habits. But the friary is like where monks lived, I think. So this friary was torn down in 1560. Many famous residents of the city are buried here, and it's one of the main tourist attractions. Harry Potter's creator, J.K. Rowling, lived in Edinburgh while writing her world-famous books. The entire city inspired her, as did Greyfriars Kirkyard. No less than 5 names were taken right from the graveyard. For instance, the name Potter. She found the name on a family grave and decided naming the main character after it. And then, I might say these wrong just because, like I said, I've not really watched Harry Potter, but Miss Elizabeth Moody was the inspiration for Alistair Mad-Eye Moody. Margaret Louisa Scrygmore Wedderburn lives on as the Minister of Magic Rufus Scrygmore. And then Professor Minerva McGonagall's name was abstracted from William McGonagall's grave, Scotland's worst poet. He wrote the infamous Scottish poem, I Saw a Cow. He's not here now. You're welcome. You're like, what the fuck?
I've never heard that before. I love
Well,
that.
it's the worst poem, so probably.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So last but not least, she named her most evil character after a man who died at the age of 26 in Trinidad. Poor Thomas Riddle has no idea. He is got Lord Voldemort named after him.
The worst, the most hated character ever.
Yep. He had no idea. Well, I know who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. But most people who visited Greyfriars Kirkyard stop to visit a small and fairly humble grave. It's the grave of Greyfriars Bobby, a loyal terrier that once belonged to John Grey, a police officer. The dog was only 2 years old when his master passed away in 1858, but their bond must have been rock solid because poor Bobby spent the remaining 14 years of his life next to the grave of his deceased owner.
Oh.
Bobby himself died on January 14th, 1872, and was given a tombstone in 1981 by the Dog Aid Society, and the tombstone is laid close to the owner, but there's no real proof of if Bobby was actually like laid to rest in the cemetery, just because it's like he's just not consecrated and like suited for a dog's burial, so he probably was buried outside the cemetery gates.
Oh, he never left his grave?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God, that broke my heart.
Yeah, so that's why I showed you the picture of the dog. There's also like a restaurant type pub that you can go eat at. So, however, people from all over the world bring sticks, balls, and toys for this little brave dog. He was even given his own statue near the entrance of the graveyard. There he stands proud and watches over everyone who walks by.
Oh my God, I'm going to start crying.
I know. That's what Aaron and I last night were talking about, or the night before, we're talking about movies. And I was like, if it's a movie where just like animals are dying, I can't.
I will not.
No, I just won't watch it. And I was like, but I can like watch a movie where people are dying left and right, but an animal dying?
I can't.
Or like the war scenes in movies and the horses get hit.
I can't
I'm
handle
done.
it. I can't handle it.
No, I can't. So.
Oh, that's the sweetest little story.
Yeah. So, as previously mentioned, grave robbers were ever present. So some graves in Greyfriars Kirkyard seem to be behind bars. There was a time when no fresh grave was safe in any cemetery. Grave robbing was a very lucrative job because medical schools used the corpses in the classroom. To make sure deceased loved ones remained in their grave, it got covered with a steel frame. These frames are called mort safes.
Mort safes?
Mort safes. So, Sir George Mackenzie was a Scottish lawyer and as Lord Advocate and minister responsible for the persecuting policy of Charles II, Scotland, against the Presbyterian Covenanters, because there was a little bit of history about the Covenanters and they had kind of taken claim to some area either in the cemetery or around it, and they were like religious people. It was very confusing to me and didn't make much sense, and I didn't think it really added to this, so I kind of took it out, but he is barely mentioned with them here. So some of the imprisoned Covenanters were executed. Many died of maltreatment. The way he treated the Covenanters gave George Mackenzie the nickname Bloody Mackenzie, and he still lives up to that name today. George Mackenzie died in 1691 and was buried in a mausoleum in Greyfriars Kirkyard. When you visit his mausoleum, you'll see it's completely sealed off and you can't enter it. The reason for this is the amount of aggressive paranormal activity that lurks inside. There have been claims of paranormal phenomena since 1990, but these increased severely since 1998. And that year...
Yeah, I was born.
I was born that year too.
Oh!
And that year, a wanderer broke into George's mausoleum to escape the dreadful Scottish winter. And it must have angered George Mackenzie so bad that he got attacked. There was a different story, and I thought I put it in here, but I didn't. There was like a guy trying to escape the weather, and he got into the mausoleum and fell through a hole, and it ended up being a grave where there was a ton of plague victims. So he fell into a plague pit of bodies.
Dead bodies.
Under this mausoleum.
Ooh.
Yeah. So then people have been pushed, scratched, bitten, and beaten while being inside his mausoleum. People have passed out, and George was even responsible for breaking a limb.
Oh my God.
Like no one makes it out unscathed. So they sealed that thing off.
Damn.
Yeah.
He's pissed.
Yeah. Bad guy. In 2000, an exorcist, Colin Grant, was called to calm the ghosts of George down. Colin didn't stay in the mausoleum very long. He immediately felt the evilness of the ghost, and he was afraid George would kill him. A few weeks later, he died of a heart attack. Coincidence?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Even the priest was like, nah.
You know what? This isn't for me. Yeah. Yep. So with all that being said, I wish I would have visited more of these haunted locations. I really missed out.
Yeah.
I did.
I'm
gonna
go
back.
We're gonna have to do that. We're gonna have to do this whenever we get rich and famous and we like go on tour.
Yeah, Edinburgh. It was I mean, I will go back there no matter what. Like Aaron and I were gonna buy we had talked about buying an Airbnb or like buying property to rent out.
Yeah.
So that we could go whenever we wanted. because we loved it
Smart.
so much.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, but it's just so freaking beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, go.
I'm like, it just makes me want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I literally I think about it all day, every day. If you got on my YouTube right now, it's like Edinburgh vlogs because I watch people vlog
Just
their trips.
Traveling.
Yeah. Before I left for our honeymoon, that's kind of what I did. I kind of like watched vlogs to see what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Found a ton of like really good food places to eat. But I started following a girl named Mary Skinner, and she's from here. She's from like Virginia, but she married a man who was living here when they met here. And then they just now moved back to Scotland, but they had done a travel vlog and I had watched their travel vlog.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I just follow her anyways because she moved to Edinburgh.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
neat.
they moved there, I think like around April or something like that.
What a life.
Yeah. And so she is literally just a YouTube vlogger, and that's all. Like, I know she does other stuff. She has a podcast. I'm not saying that's all she does. I'm not like discrediting her. She's awesome. But she lives there now, and like I watch all of her vlogs because her house is so freaking cool. It's like a 2 or 3 story like situation. Like I'll have to show you. It's so cool. And then she just vlogs like she goes to Pilates, and then she kind of vlogs like, just whatever else she's doing.
Yeah.
And it's just
she's living her best
honestly,
life.
Last week she was in like Norway or something like that. She's really cool. She went to like Croatia right after that. She travels a lot.
If anybody wants to Venmo me $1 million,
I'll
please
gladly accept that.
I need a couple $1 million. If a couple you want to give me $1 million.
Yeah, I'll invest it first. I'll make a business out of it.
I won't. I'm going to spend it immediately.
I will. No, I'm going to make a business. You're like, not me. No, I'm going to make a business out of it.
I have a list.
I have a list, but I'm going to make a business out of it so then I can continue to make my money out of the money. Yeah. That's always what I thought. I'm like, if I win the lottery, this is what I'm doing.
What a dream.
I know.
What a dream.
Yeah. But I highly recommend anyone who is interested in anything I've said, Scottish history, Edinburgh history, but Scotland history in general was just crazy. Which if you like Outlander, then you're going to love Scotland history and things like that. It's just so freaking cool. And I highly recommend going to all of the castles and everything. It was just so cool. And normally it's like $50 for both of you to go to one castle.
Mm-hmm.
I found there's this Scottish Historical Society or something like that. And they own a lot of the castles, or like they're in partnership with a lot of the castles. You can buy like a pass for $100 and something like a piece.
And see like multiple of
see
them.
A ton of them. And so Aaron and I ran into this one couple at one of the castles, and then later on in the day we're at another castle and we ran into them again, and they're like, "Oh, are y'all doing like a castle trip?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And they had planned their trip, and then COVID hit, so they couldn't go. So then they moved everything, and I was like, "Yeah, did y'all get this?" And they were like, "No, we just paid $1 million for all the castles." And I was like,
"Oh,
sorry."
Dang.
Yeah.
Bummer.
So cool. So cool.
That's so neat. Yeah, there's and lots of like old ghosts, and I like those stories because those guys been through it. I mean, they went through the plague.
Yeah.
That shit scares me.
And just, that terrifies me. But even just all the wars that they've been through, you have to think of
that too.
The soldiers and the troops just marching down the Royal Mile is crazy to me. And like all the cobblestone.
And the trauma.
Just everything. It is so interesting. Or can you imagine being one of the lower servants? Mm-hmm. Or even living like a king and a queen?
That's all I'm trying to be.
Yeah, you know I think living like a king or a queen would be so cool. But not necessarily being a woman back in those days at all. Mm-mm. Just like you could have been married to King Henry the
8th.
Was it 8th or 6th? 8th, and he was married 6 times and
killed them all.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
you could be like Marie Antoinette
and just kill him, Bloody Mary, whatever.
Isn't she the one who beheaded?
Yeah,
her husband.
She like killed a lot of people. I'm pretty sure she caused a lot of shit.
Go girl.
So King Henry, how you said that? Do you remember in Coach Ferg's class?
Yes. Every time I think of him,
that's
what I think of.
Yeah, and then I learned that.
I mean, every time I think of King Henry, that's what I think of.
Well, I actually learned that we are his ancestors, or he's our ancestor. And he was killing his wives, divorcing his wives because they never gave him an heir. And then he had an heir with a mistress. And that's how the last name Edwards started, was the mistress. And then Edwards have been going ever since. There was like an Edwards, there's like an Edwards Manor and all sorts of stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, and in planning our honeymoon, there's like the usual route where people start in Edinburgh and you either go down or you go up and then you go around. Aaron and I went up. We did it backwards. Most people go down and around. We went up and around because there's Duff everywhere. There was a Duff house, a Duff Castle, and the house was like a manor. And then we ended up being tied into the Carnegies because one of the daughters of the Duffs or something like that, something happened where she married like a Carnegie, or it was one of the sons. Mm-hmm. And she was like a Polish princess or some random shit, something. She was Carnegie, and then we got married, and so her name had more status, and so it went to Duff Carnegie. Mm-hmm. And
dude, that's where I feel like you could get stuck down a rabbit hole because you would want to know your royal, if you had any like royal bloodline. You know? We
were way off in it.
That's so cool.
But then I have all of this stuff from the King Henry as well. From Nana gave me. Nana literally, quite literally, has our ancestry tied all the way back to him.
That's so cool.
And so I have that at home as well. But yeah,
love it.
That was the coolest part. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, like I'm connected to it. It makes you feel so cool when you can like find a connection.
Yeah,
that to me and related to anything in life always blows my mind.
Yeah, like
I'm
the
like
invisible,
even just the littlest connection.
Invisible string theory or whatever, where you just end up somewhere you're supposed to be and you're like, wait, how the fuck did I?
Yeah, like let me just mention the Menendez brothers again. Sorry, I said it was the last time. It's never gonna be the last time.
It will never.
Talking about the book that Jose made Lyle read when he was little.
Yes.
Greatest Salesman in the World or something is what it was called. I was watching the trials. My husband was like, wow, that sounds really familiar. Like there was a line that he was reciting that his father made him memorize. That's like this crazy ass shit. And my husband was like, I know that from somewhere. That sounds really familiar. And I'm like, okay, that's weird.
Shut up.
The other day, he's like going through our junk drawer and he pulls out the fucking book. And he's like, oh yeah, I own this book.
That's why.
I was like, okay.
Put it up, Damien. Put it up.
Yeah. So I just have it sitting on my counter now because I'm like, I'm going to read this.
Yeah.
It's just weird little shit like that.
Yeah.
Literally has nothing to do with anything. But it's just.
You've never heard a word before, or, you haven't heard it in a long time, and then you turn on the TV and they say it 5 times in one show and you're like,
what am I supposed to be getting from this?
Excuse me. What are you trying to tell me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What am I not listening to?
Yeah. And so I try and do that. I will be like, okay, show me a sign. And I look. I'm like.
You're like, is it a sign or am I reaching?
Yeah. But.
No, that's so cool. I love that. I would definitely want to visit there one day.
Yeah, it felt like home. Like that's what I was going to ask you in the beginning. Have you ever been somewhere that you're like, this is home? Like anytime you like Belize, Hawaii.
Oh yeah.
You land there, you get there and you're like.
That's me everywhere I go.
No, I don't. I normally am like, let's go home. Mm-hmm. And like Aaron and I, we landed in Edinburgh. Like I said, we traveled all throughout Scotland, loved every minute of it. Flew to Ireland, landed in Dublin, which was probably the shittiest place to have like started our Ireland because Dublin is disgusting. I thought it was going to be really cool. Crackheads everywhere, just up and down, riffraff. It was really kind of scary. Like it was actually scary. Mm-hmm. My husband is a 240-pound, very like beefed up, not beefed up, but he's strong. He's a working man who's not scared of anything. Like I've never seen him be frightened by anything.
Yeah.
And we were walking around and he was like, I'm not necessarily scared, but I'm uncomfortable that you're scared. He's like, I don't like that you were nervous.
Yeah.
Because walking through where we were walking through, I wasn't as scared when we were walking like the main part of Ireland or Dublin, but we kind of stayed outside of it a little bit one of the nights. And I did not, like, I sent him to the store to get me water and I just stayed in our room and like locked the door because I just didn't like it. And it was just creepy.
That's icky.
I just didn't really, I probably started it off wrong, but when we were in Ireland, I was like, I really kind of am ready to go home. Like which at that point it had already been almost like 2 weeks into the trip. But I was like, maybe it's just I miss my dogs,
Yeah.
But then went through that and we landed back in Scotland and we were in Scotland for another like 3 or 4 days before we flew home. And when I tell you we both like got off the plane, and it is where you walk on the tarmac, like you don't walk into an airport. And just were like, oh shit, like we don't want to go home anymore. We just like home.
Want to be here.
Yeah. We've both said that, like, but I'm so attached to my family. But both of us have been like, one day we will live there when we're not as like attached. Maybe when we have like kids that like are, because I want to be able to have my kids around my family and everything. But I'm like, maybe one day when everyone's older, the kids are older, and just everyone's older. I don't know, but it was beautiful. Love it. I want to go back. I watch Scotland stuff all the time.
It's on my list for sure.
We'll go. We will.
Yeah.
And so Aaron literally last night was like, well, if we just bought all the stuff that we bought for Christmas on a credit card with the points, then you could have gone to Scotland all with the points.
That? Don't you hate that? That's how I measure everything that we spend money on. I'm like, we could have gone 2 weeks somewhere.
Yeah, the points.
Away from here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. The struggle.
Yeah. Well, if you're still here, feel free to, if you're from Edinburgh or if you're in Scotland or you've been to Scotland or Edinburgh and you have any stories, ghost or not, tell me. I love them. I love all of it. Even if you're not and you don't have a ghost story from Edinburgh.
If you have a ghost story from somewhere lame.
Yeah. Send it to us at sistersofthestrange@gmail.com. And then our socials are all pretty much the same. Sisters of the Strange or Sisters of the Strange podcast.
Go follow us on TikTok.
Yes.
We have 300 followers. We hit 300 followers. I was so excited about that. So if you're here from TikTok,
love you.
Love you. Thank you. You're my favorite. Go follow our Instagram.
Yeah, our Instagram is needing it. But everything has been so much fun. I've enjoyed it. I've been severely lacking because I've also enjoyed life. But if you are following along, then in the next couple weeks and months, we're going to do a couple Christmas episodes. We are going to dive into some mineral wells, lore, situation stuff, and then just whatever else happens in the meantime.
And we do take requests. I know that's a weird way to say that, but if you have a story, just let us know, because one of the stories that I'm doing here soon is something that somebody had recommended, and that's one of the ones I'm going to be doing. Yeah,
and I've always wanted to do mineral wells, but people were recommending that as well, and I was like, all right, well, let's do it, because it's just local, it's close to us, and I know a lot about it, but people requested local. So we're going to follow whatever people are asking.
Yeah. Tell us what you want to hear and we'll do it to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
Just don't give me something that I can go off down the hole and
no more
record
Menendez
for 6
brothers.
hours.
Yeah. That's at the beginning of this. I said, you know how you were, I said, I could get into, I didn't end up saying it, but I'd written it here. I'm like, I could get into 6 or 7 pages or 7 hours. We would be in these chairs longer than we were for Eric and Lyle if I talked about the history of Scotland. And then I just didn't say it because I wasn't reading off of it as much as I thought I would. But
yeah, you should have. Throw shade at me. It's okay. It's fine.
It was honestly really interesting, so I'm down. But it was really dark and depressing. It took me a minute to get out of.
Me too, girl.
After I recorded, Aaron was like, no wonder you're in a weird mood. And I was like, did you listen to that? Like, that's hard.
Yeah, it's hard to hear, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, we digress.
I think that's it.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
We will see you next week on Sisters of the Strange.
Ooh.
Don't play with my heart. Okay, bye.
Bye.